Hi there, it's me, Gretchen. Welcome to Story and Art. I'm so glad you could be here with me tonight. Yes, I'm sorry I'm not here live with you like normal, but I let you guys know that I was going to do a premiere instead. I've got a big family gathering tonight. And so if you're catching this on replay, this doesn't matter, but my live folks, this is where I am. Thank you for being here. And I'll try to check in on the premiere. But if not, chat amongst yourselves and enjoy the story. This is the second part to what I started on Tuesday with Tuesday Towers, and we talked about Gustavino, the architect, and all the amazing things he did, and to change American architecture, or to actually the influence that he had and all the great buildings. And I told you that this was a two-part kind of thing, and that there would be two different architects to learn about and to talk about. And one was male from one time, the other female from a completely different time, both from other parts of the world who their work has influenced so many places here in the United States as well as around the world. So that's the story I have for you tonight. Tonight, I have the story Building Zaha, a story of architect Zaha Hadid by Victoria Tentler Krylov. And I found some things out. Let's see, here it is. Yes. This is, oh, that's not good. There it is. Making it bigger for you. Victoria Tentler Krylov herself is an architect, trained and practicing architect, as well as a children's and editorial illustrator. She grew up in St. Petersburg, Russia, and studied architecture and urban design at Cooper Union and Columbia University. Her inspiration is fueled by urban landscapes, but also by fantasy, possibly, and imagination. Her other passion is experimenting with digital and traditional art tools, and in particular, pushing the boundaries of watercolor digitally. Whoa, okay. You know, I've been messing around with watercolor, and which is very odd for a photographer. Well, not odd, but just different, a different thing to push my own art boundaries. And so that's exciting to see and kind of interesting to hear about. I'm looking forward to this. So here is this book tonight. So I wanted to bring this to you because this is an entirely different kind of architect, but still you can see the influences, and another one of those amazing books where we learn about people that have influenced our country and influenced so many things around the world, and the talents that, you know, if we didn't have these children's books, would we really ever spend the time to learn about them? And I'm looking at the wrong camera. Oh well. Anyway, so this is what we have. Building Zaha. Let me get that camera right to the spot so I don't look. There we go. And here. Yay, that's the one. Whoa. So Building Zaha. I'm excited for this book for you. Just a sec here. Well, okay, here we go. Oh, that's not right. There we go. Got it. Yes. All right, Building Zaha. The story of Zaha Hadid. Look at those. Look at these pictures. Oh my goodness. You really have to have a goal. The goals posts might shift, but you should have a goal. Zaha Hadid was a thinker and an observer and never remained still. As a young girl, she loved to explore the mosques and palaces around Baghdad, where sunlight streamed through windows, forming shadows that shifted and rippled like water. Zaha loved to stay up late reading, and in one book she read about how people built floating homes in the Sumerian wetlands. She was determined to see this for herself. Zaha traveled with her father to Sumer, where watery marshes, reeds, and grasses rippled and flowed all around. It was beautiful, complete harmony, and it never remained still. Zaha wondered whether was better to live in a modern city like Baghdad or this one, as with nature. One time, Zaha's aunt and uncle came over, excited to share a scale model of their future house. Zaha wasn't allowed to touch the model, but she couldn't pull herself away. It was a bit like a dollhouse, but it was much more than a toy. Thoughts of creating, shaping, and constructing danced in Zaha's head. Zaha set a goal for herself and got to work right away. Her family could tell she had big plans. "You could become Iraq's first female astronaut," one of her brothers suggested. But Zaha had something else in mind. "I want to be an architect," she announced. She was interested in exploring a different kind of space. Construction sites fascinated Zaha. She couldn't pass one without stopping to imagine the shapes and structures that might emerge. When she didn't have her notebook to sketch in, she worked on calculations in her head. Zaha loved math. She didn't see much difference between solving problems and designing buildings. Both were creative and challenging, just what she liked. Zaha got her math degree in Beirut, then packed up and moved to London. It was time to get serious about studying architecture. It rained and rained in England, but this didn't bother Zaha. She didn't have time to bask in the sun. Anyway, so she stayed in her studio for hours on end, sketching, reading, and thinking. Zaha was not afraid to question what was possible. Even her process was different. The way she drew a staircase, "You would smash your head against the ceiling," said one of her professors. But Zaha knew she could always fix the details. And she was right. Zaha dreamed big and defied convention. She searched for paints and brushes and conjured structures that tilted, swayed, and floated on air. Zaha impressed her professors, and two of them hired her to work at their firm after graduation. Zaha brought new ideas to the office in more ways than one. She liked to challenge the rules, standing her ground in fabulous furry heels. "There's an assumption that if you dress like a man, then people will respond to you more," she stated. "You shouldn't have to look drab to appear professional." After years, Zaha opened her own studio. She worked harder than ever. "I think about architecture all the time. I dream it sometimes," she said. Zaha was becoming famous in England. People talked about her unconventional ideas and her paintings, and yet she wasn't hired to design. So Zaha started entering competitions. One contest was for a hotel and sports club in Hong Kong. She painted the whole island with her design nestled right among its mountains. Zaha called it a confetti snowstorm, and her innovation launched her to first place, beating out many prominent architects. But the organizers decided the design was too complicated to build and dropped the project. Though Zaha won, the goalpost had moved. Zaha wasn't deterred. She kept working, and one day a client from Germany called. "Could Zaha design a fire station?" "Well, yes." She decided to make the building look like a bird taking flight. People couldn't believe how daring it was, and showered Zaha with praise. At last, one of Zaha's designs was becoming a reality. Success came with even more scrutiny. Zaha continued to get work, but critics insisted she was in danger of becoming a paper architect. someone whose designs stay on paper and never get built. Was this really about her designs, or was it because she was different and challenged what was possible? Zaha often didn't agree with the criticism she received, so she had to be tougher than most and confident in her vision. On to the next challenge. Zaha was hired to create a housing complex in Austria on a complicated setting with many obstacles that overlapped and intertwined. As Zaha sketched, she remembered the marshes she'd visited as a child. She pictured the rippling harmony between the man-made structures, the reeds, the water, and the wind. Could she approach this project the same way? Was it possible to create complete harmony in a space so divided? Zaha came up with a daring plan. She made not one building, but a set of 3. Sorry about that. Split into fragments that weaved the setting together. The structures weren't just beautiful, they made everything around them more beautiful too. Zaha's next big goal was to design a project in the United States. She was waiting for the perfect opportunity, and it finally arrived. A competition for an art museum in Ohio. Zaha designed the galleries to look like a stack of concrete boxes floating on air. It was no contest. Zaha's winning proposal made her the first woman to ever design a museum in the United States. And artists were so inspired that they even began to make art specifically for the museum she designed. Zaha was finally building momentum. Clients clamored to hire her, fellow architects studied her designs, and students dreamed of working in her studio. Zaha would throw her colorful silks and jangling jewelry into a suitcase and take off for France, Singapore, or China to work on projects, sometimes at a moment's notice. All over the world, people stopped to stare at the shapes and structures she created. She now had hundreds of buildings to her name, and thousands of people lined up to see exhibitions of her work in Vienna and New York. Zaha became the youngest person to win the Pritzker Prize, the highest award an architect can receive. No matter where her projects were, Zaha always tried to achieve 2 goals. One was harmony between humans and their surroundings, and the other was a sense of change, movement, and never standing still. She was remembering her adventures in the Sumerian marshes, or was the intricate light and shadow play in the mosques and palaces of Baghdad? Zaha smiled. She would never explain why her buildings looked the way they did. They would speak for themselves. Author's note. I started drawing houses at the age of 2 with oddly shaped roofs, round walls, and too many windows to count. I loved drawing those houses, writing stories for the people and animals who lived in them. When I learned I could make a career out of this, my goals were set. When my family immigrated from Russia to New York in 1992, I started architecture school. I learned that architecture is more than beautifully drawn buildings. Good design identifies problems and offers solutions. This made architecture sometimes feel like math. I loved this, even though math wasn't my strongest suit. I began studying modern architects all over the world, and Zaha in particular. At that time, Zaha was already well on her way to becoming a competition-winning machine. Watching her ideas become real was more than inspiring to me. It was a call to action. Zaha demonstrated to me from afar how to set yourself apart from the competition, how to support and encourage your collaborators, how to persevere in a field that discriminates against women, and how to embrace reinvention. When Zaha passed away in 2016, she had an astonishing 36 projects underway. One of those projects is 520 West 28th Street in New York City, fondly known as the Zaha Hadid building. I often stand on the sidewalk in front of it, lost in the mind-boggling geometry of the facade. So simple and so complex. It's hard to take in the volume of the building from street level, so I climb the steps to the High Line, the elevated park that runs past it, and I follow the interlocking windows' curves as I walk higher and closer. It's more than just a building to me, more than an important architectural project, or even a work of art. It's a question and an answer, a problem and a solution. It's impossible to imagine anything else in its place. I wish Zaha could have seen it become a reality, but then again, she probably had long before anyone else. Wow. Look at that. Oh, pictures of her from her little and on. Beautiful. There it is, the Zaha Hadid building. And more. Oh, I love this end paper for this book. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Man. Okay, you guys. Yes. As you know, this is probably the beginning of me being gone for a few days, and I pumped in recording a few stories in a row, and I apologize if there were a little bunch of glitches and jumps in there, but you know what? I usually do this live, so I'm going to leave it as I always do, and just as if it was live, with all the bumps and bruises and ups and downs and ins and outs and flaws and fancies that I put in them. That's just me, and it's what I want to bring to you. So thank you for being here tonight for this story in art. I hope you like this story of Zaha Hadid, building Zaha. It's just another inspirational one. She was born in 1950, died in 2016. Just amazing work that she brought to the United States and also worldwide. Such an innovator, and I think it's wonderful. And talk about finding the beauty, man, hidden in plain sight, from the floating houses to just amazing. So you guys, it's been wonderful, and thank you for being here and inviting me into your home and for coming into my studio and hearing the stories. And until the next time, you know the deal. Keep looking for that beauty hidden in plain sight. It's all around you, but the first place you'll find it is if you go look in the mirror, and it'll be looking right back at you. Until next time, take care.
All we need is a place to be and a few good friends for some company. If you'd like to stay, you don't have to leave. We'll leave the lights on and the door unlocked. If you drop on by, you don't have to knock. We're happy to share whatever we've got.